We've been hearing these stories of students who have straight A's, really high SAT scores, and they're the president of different clubs, yet they still get rejected from Ivy League schools. So what's up with that? My name is Dylan Nellis. I'm a college admissions coach and a recent Stanford graduate, and I'm going to break this down for you. The reason why these seemingly top students are not getting into Ivy League universities or the top tier universities is not this mystical question that no one has the answer to, because there actually is a strategy to getting into these top schools, and it might not be the common things that you think, like high grades, high SAT score. So there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple years ago about this student who had a 1550 SAT. She had a 3.95 unweighted GPA, and she had 11 APs. In addition to that, she was the founder of her school's accounting club. She performed and directed in about 30 plays, sang in the school choir, helped run a summer camp, and held down a part-time job in addition to other activities. Sounds like a pretty stellar student, right? And I'm sure she is. I'm sure she has great qualities and absolutely has so much potential and can achieve the things that she wants in life. Yet she did get rejected from Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Brown, Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, University of Southern California, UC Berkeley, and Northwestern. So why does that happen? It seems like she was super qualified. She clearly works hard. She clearly involves herself in things. What went wrong? What does it mean to be extraordinary in the college application process? Like, what do these top colleges want from me? God, I'm just a high school student. So let's get into this. The first thing I want you to really understand is that your stats will not set you apart. It's really interesting to me how a lot of these journal articles and like TikToks that come out and stuff are all focused on their stats. Like, oh, she had a 50-50 SAT, she had a whatever GPA, she had straight A's. Why did she get rejected? Hold on. The focus should not be on the stats. High stats is a given in these top school admissions. So I really want you, when thinking about all this, to shift your attention away from just stats. You need to zoom out and view the entire picture, because it's all about how the different puzzle pieces of your application come together to create a narrative as a whole. So when we're just thinking about stats, it's not very helpful, because most students applying to top universities have high stats. They have high grades. So high grades don't show who you are as a person or what you have to contribute to the university. To craft a really good application, you have to hone in on your strong passions and showcase your unique values as well. So as you go through the application process, you really want to pay attention to how you frame your story, because this is so much more important than earning a couple more points on your SAT. This is why when students ask me, like, should I spend a bunch of months like studying for the SAT and working so hard at that, or should I use that same time and write my college essays? And I will almost always say your college essays, because honestly, I think that matters a little bit more. You're crafting something so unique, and these essays are what are going to bring your application to life and show the person behind the paper, not just a score that everyone else has. Your essays have the chance to showcase something new and that is unlike any other person. So when it comes to admission strategy, one thing I really want to sink into your head is that your application is more than what you have done. It's not about directly just putting on the paper saying, yeah, this is who I am, this is what I do, that's that. College applications are an art, and that's why I've dedicated myself to helping other students with them, because it is about how you frame the narrative, how you craft the story. It's about how you strategically present your experiences and your values to show the admissions committee who you are and your potential to succeed at their institution. All right, so the narrative of your application is what is going to help you stand out, not your stats. Next, let's talk about extracurriculars. The Ivy Leagues, these really top schools, and Stanford, I know Stanford's not an Ivy League, but we can put it up there. They want tier 1 extracurriculars. Okay, so what does that mean? There are 4 tiers of extracurriculars when it comes to college admissions, with tier 1 being the most impactful, the most impressive to colleges. They tend to demonstrate the most leadership, achievement, impact, and uniqueness. A tier 1 extracurricular or award might also involve some national or international achievement. Oftentimes we'll consider passion projects tier 1 activities if done in a certain way where you scale your passion project to be big enough to where it's actually serving people, it's helping people in your community or the world at large. A passion project can be something like starting a nonprofit, or engineering a certain device, or making a new app, or conducting an independent research project, or publishing a book. But you don't want to just make a passion project because you're like, oh, I have to do this for college. The whole point of making a passion project is that you're doing it because it's your passion, because you feel drawn to it, because you want to engage with this material, you want to learn more about this subject, and so you're going to do that by making a project. That's the whole reason why colleges like passion projects so much, because they push you to learn by doing, and they demonstrate your intellectual vitality because you're going beyond the classroom environment to learn. Colleges love to see that you're making use of what you have available to you, your resources, your community, the people you're connected to, and you're using those things to work towards making an impact on the world, solving real problems, helping real people. And this is so important to them because colleges, in their admissions process, want to make sure that you as their student will make great use of their resources, their community, their faculty, their opportunities. So by having a passion project, that serves as an example of the kind of work that you would do at their institution, or how you would apply what you learn from their institution to go and do amazing things after you graduate. So if I come back to that article in the Wall Street Journal about the student, we said she, founded the accounting club, performed in some plays, did show choir, summer camp, and a part-time job. So when I talk about her extracurricular profile, the thing is it lacks tier 1 extracurriculars, the kind of extracurricular activities that I just talked about. I know I just talked about passion projects, but there are other types of tier 1 extracurriculars as well. Just anything that's like very unique, big impact, impressive, large scale of impact, like either your community or the state or the country or the world as a whole. Now, I just want to be completely honest about my feelings also with this, because it kind of makes me uncomfortable. This is honestly what bothers me about the competitive nature of top tier university admissions, because it's like, there's no doubt that those activities that this student did are awesome. Right? We think founding your accounting club, that's awesome. Performing in plays, that's awesome. I love performing in plays too. Show choir, summer camp, working, those things are awesome. And I'm sure that she and like so many other people who do these things got great lessons out of this. They had amazing experiences and they definitely contributed to this student's development. But it's so unfortunate about this Ivy League college admissions process that it's so competitive to get into an Ivy League university that you would need another standout factor on top of all of that. You would need some of those tier 1 extracurriculars, especially those that are more pointed toward your major. So top colleges tend to value students who are a bit more spiky than well-rounded. And what that means is they want to make sure that you have prepared for the major that you're intending. And what that means is they want to see through your application that you have prepared for your intended major. If you're going to major in English, it would be great to see that you have done maybe some writing camps, or like written your own poetry, or published some piece of writing into a magazine or an article. It really helps when some of your activities, it does not need to be all of your activities, but some of them can point to your major and say, look, this is how I've prepared for my major. Because colleges want to create a class, when they're shaping their admissions class, they want to create a class of all spiky students. These are students who are at the top in each of their respective domains, rather than everyone just being okay at a bunch of things. Now, when I applied to college, mind you, I did end up getting into every school that I applied to, and I did end up getting into Stanford and going to Stanford. But when I applied and I heard this piece of advice, I was so freaked out because I was like, oh my God, I'm so interested in many different things. I love art. I love technology. I love performing. I love education. I love so many things. So how am I going to convey that to colleges? And should I limit myself? Should I niche down? What do I do? But I actually ended up finding a way to take this piece of advice and craft my own strategy so that I actually did present myself in a more spiky light. I wouldn't say that my entire application was just focused on one domain, like art or something, especially because I was applying to schools that had programs that combined art and technology in some way. But knowing that, I made sure to adjust my application and emphasize the parts of myself, emphasize the extracurriculars, emphasize the stories that had more to do with my intended field of study. So one thing I didn't do, for example, is talk a whole bunch about musical theater, talk a whole bunch about theater, because I was not going to be an acting major. Theater is not something that I wanted to study academically in college. I definitely wanted to do it as an extracurricular, and I did, and it was great. But knowing that I wasn't going to emphasize that part of my application, I wanted to really emphasize the parts that would show that I have prepared for my major. So what this comes down to is creating connections in your application, making sure that each part of your application connects to the other part. So what this comes down to is creating connections in your applications. Like, how can your activities speak to your experiences, speak to your values? How do each of those things interact and connect to make sure that your application is cohesive? The whole point of the whole spiky versus well-rounded thing is making sure that your application reads well together. It is nicely packaged as a cohesive narrative rather than scattered and all over the place, because you don't want the admissions officers to think that you lack direction. You want to show them how each of your experiences have actually informed the other. And you can do that even if you're someone who is multidisciplinary like myself. And I will break down how to do this in much more detail and depth in my free masterclass, which you can easily just sign up for right here. It's nextgenadmit.com/masterclass. I am going to break down the top school admission strategy in the whole 60 minutes. So it'll be super valuable. Check that out. So back to talking about activities. How you present them in the college application matters. Yes, it really does. Your activities list is not just a list, it tells a story. So it matters which ones you're putting first, how you're ordering your activities list, and it matters how you're writing those descriptions. It's all about framing, right? How are we framing this to showcase yourself in the best light? And framing in a way that is authentic and true to you. You're not making up any lies, you're not stretching the truth, it is fully authentic, but it is showcasing the best parts of you, the most impressive parts of you, and therefore getting the attention of these colleges that you want to go to. Another factor in college admissions is your background. Yes, it does play a part in admissions. It's not just your stats, your extracurriculars, and your essays. It is also the context in which you grew up.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
The student in the article that I mentioned was a middle-class white female, which unfortunately puts her in an overrepresented group. There are a lot of white middle-class females applying to top universities. And so she's kind of having to compete with other people in that same group. So colleges do take into account a lot of different factors when making a decision, and part of that is your background and your location, your geographical residence, the state in which you reside, and the school that you went to and the kinds of resources that they had at that school. This is why it's actually harder for students who go to high schools that are really competitive, like private high schools where a lot of students are all really high achieving and they're all trying to get into these top universities, that actually makes it more competitive for a student than someone like me, for example. I went to a Title I public arts high school in Los Angeles. And so there weren't a ton of students who were super academically rigorous and trying to get into these top Ivy League universities. So I do honestly feel that that is one thing that made it easier for me to get into Stanford. Now, the reason why colleges do this is because they're looking at the resources that you have access to, right? Like if you have access to a ton of AP classes and they see that you're not taking them, then they're like, well, you're not taking advantage of the resources that you have. So it doesn't look as good. Versus if your school does not offer AP classes or they offer very little, then they're not going to judge you harshly for not taking a bunch of AP classes because you didn't have access to that. So we have to judge this on a more fair level. But what this does mean is that you're also compared to the students who have that same context or background or access to resources as you. Let's talk about essays and what you should or shouldn't be writing about. One thing about these articles and videos that talk about these amazing students who got rejected from all of these schools is that they don't really focus on what the student wrote about in their college essay and how they wrote their college essay, which is like so important for the college application. And one thing I want you to know when writing your application is that yes, shit happens. Shit in your life will happen, but that does not mean that you should write your college essay about it. If you're going to write about a challenge, you have to do it in a certain way that showcases your growth more than the challenge itself, because colleges are not admitting you for going through challenges. They're not like, oh my God, she went through such terrible things in her life. Bravo, come join our class. No, colleges don't want that. In fact, that can actually give colleges a red flag. They might actually see all these negative things about you or that you've gone through and go, ooh, I don't know, is that gonna cost us more resources? Because unfortunately, colleges are a business. They function as a business. That's not to say that colleges don't want to hear about your challenges, because they do, and they'll even ask about that in their essay prompts. But it matters how you write these essays. The reason colleges are admitting you and the reason why they want to hear about your challenges is because they want to see your growth. They want to understand the lessons that you have learned by going through those challenges. Because we can only gain new lessons and values by going through tough life experiences. When I coach my students, I teach them how to write a hero story, not a sob story. Don't write a sob story, okay? Colleges are not admitting you because they pity you. They're admitting you because they think that you're gonna succeed at their university. So I just think if you're gonna write in your college essay about a challenge, especially mental health, be very careful about how you write about it. And if you want any advice on how to write something or how to write about something that is sensitive to you, please book a coaching call with me. Join my course. Watch the videos that we have on this channel. Watch my free masterclass that is going to give you those tools to craft your story in the best light. Because the last thing I want is for you to do all this hard work in high school and then get rejected because you showcased a red flag in your application. Now, this isn't to say that you should not write about mental health in your essays. I think that is something that you can write about with caution, and also I don't think it should be the main topic of your essay unless it's about like how you started a mental health organization and you're doing all this work in mental health like to help solve the problem and to help other people. But I don't think the whole essay should be about your mental health challenges. Be very careful with that. This is all to say, college applications is truly an art. It is about how you frame your story, what you're choosing to write about, and how do you showcase yourself in the best light. So yes, you can have amazing stats, you can have cool extracurriculars, but no one is gonna know how truly amazing you are unless you show them with really well-crafted stories. And that's my specialty. That's what I help my students do. So if you're struggling right now, it doesn't mean that you're not smart. It doesn't mean that you don't have potential. It does not mean that you aren't good enough, okay? You are. Everyone has amazing stories to tell, and you probably just don't have the strategy yet, and that's what you need. So if you are set on getting into a top university, then you gotta check out this free masterclass, because this is really where it all is and where you're gonna understand how to frame your application in the best light. Check it out, it's free. I'll also give you 2 extra bonuses if you show up. You're gonna get my whole college application task manager. This is an interactive platform that makes it so much easier to organize all of your tasks, your deadlines, and your notes in one place. Yes, I'm going to give that to you for free. You'll also get the college data vault, which is a whole bunch of data that we have accumulated and put into a spreadsheet, nicely organized for you, so you can understand each of the factors that different schools look for, because each school is a little bit different, and here you'll be able to see what schools consider most important or not so important, or some things that they don't even consider at all. So check that out. It'll be so helpful for you, and let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.